This, for Anatoly Vasilyevich Vetrov, is a little slice of paradise.
Нашего президента водка.
For decades he came here each weekend to build a country cottage on the Pacific coast. It was a place to savour nature, grow vegetables and enjoy life with his family.
Дорожки делал, все своими руками, все. И дом построил, все один. Все нормально было, хорошо. Ну, до завода все хорошо.
Now Anatoly believes everything is turning bad. Behind Anatoly's village, Russia's first liquefied natural gas plant is thundering into life.
Ну, со строительства завода, конечно, начались вот эти вот пыль, грязь, вот это вот. Шумы очень большие шумы, очень много шума. Работает техника громадная и создает шумы. Мы же все пенсионеры здесь, вот мне 64 года, значит, все создает неудобства.
It is part of a $20 billion project to exploit some of Sakhalin's vast oil and gas reserves. This remote Russian island has become the new frontier for an energy-hungry planet. Ian Craig heads Sakhalin Energy, a consortium of Shell and the Japanese companies Mitsui and Mitsubishi.
It's a huge project. It's one of the biggest integrated oil and gas projects in the world. We're installing 2 new platforms, 1,600 kilometers of pipeline, the first LNG plant in Russia, all in one project. So the scale of it is quite daunting.
Projects like Shell's should bring untold wealth to the island. It will tap 2 new fields off Sakhalin's northeast coast, in waters that freeze over for 6 months of the year. To ensure year-round exports, it's building oil and gas pipelines down the entire length of the island, to the ice-free port of Korsakov, where an LNG plant and loading terminal will send the fuel to Asia, the US and Mexico. But for many islanders in this erstwhile Soviet outpost, it is like an alien invasion.
Почему нас так грабят постоянно? Наше правительство нас грабит. Теперь нам гадят, извините, здесь уже вот иностранцы.
Sakhalin has rarely been a welcoming place. It began life as a Tsarist penal colony. The writer Anton Chekhov called it hell. From 1905, half the island was occupied by Japan. After 1945, it became a Cold War military frontier. The last time it was in the news was 1983, when the military shot down a Korean passenger jet that strayed too close, killing 269 souls. Until recently, most islanders liked their closed world just the way it was. In the latter years of the Soviet Union, this was a relatively prosperous part of Russia. People were encouraged to settle here with high salaries to populate the area and to work in the timber and fishing industries. That all ended in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. Suddenly, people lost their jobs, their savings were made worthless by hyperinflation, and Sakhalin was left to wither on the Russian vine. For schoolteacher Alima Divida, it's meant trying to educate children with nothing but determination.
Мы не живем, а выживаем. Во-первых, финансирования школ абсолютно никакого нет. Ремонт делаем своими средствами только благодаря помощи родителям. И то, если родители соглашаются помочь. Иначе, мне кажется, уже школа, повсеместно школы бы просто развалились. Потому что никакого финансирования ниоткуда не поступает.
Enter the Western oil giants. As Soviet isolation ended, companies like Shell and ExxonMobil came with multi-billion-dollar proposals to exploit Sakhalin's vast reserves. Normally, Russia restricts big energy contracts to Russian companies, often in return for corrupt kickbacks. But the sheer scale of the projects here needed foreign capital and expertise.
It's a very worthwhile project for the shareholders, for the Sakhalin region and for the Russian Federation.
It's certainly worthwhile for Western oil men. Every night, the bars and clubs in the capital Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk fill with expatriate workers and entrepreneurs. Riggers from New Zealand, concreters from Canada, caterers from Australia.
Fantastic. Good place. Good people, plenty of work. It's going to boom in the next 2 or 3 years. Plenty of good people here. The Russian people are cool.
More than 5,000 expatriates are working here, and the energy wealth has just begun to be tapped.
Been here 5 years, love the place. Yep. Wouldn't come back if they didn't enjoy it. What's good about it? They're going to put it politely.
They're earning money most Russians could only dream of, and some locals are happy to be part of it. But not everyone's overjoyed by the invasion of the oil men.
Деньги пойдут непосредственно компаниям и непосредственно в Москву. Я не буду говорить за начальников, да, которые сидят где-то, а вот мы, обыкновенные жители, мы ничего не выигрываем, мы только проигрываем от этого проекта.
Александра Николаевна, можно вас? Можно поговорить с
The
вами?
discontent begins in Anatoly's village of Prigorodny, opposite the LNG plant. They'll soon have to abandon their homes without compensation for a 3-kilometre safety cordon around the plant. Their final days here are spent watching paradise destroyed.
И это все, это экологически нарушится все тут. Тут все, тут будет пустыня. И рыбы нету, да. Разрушенные дороги. Город не строится. Город не строится. У нас, как в Чечне, дома стоят разрушенные. Вообще кошмар.
Дороги вообще не ремонтируют.
Да.
Anatoly's neighbour, Yelena Yarbushkina, has been leading the villagers' opposition to the project without success. Even the beach they use, along with thousands of others from Korsakov and Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk, will be closed once the LNG plant is online. The nearest beach is 2 hours' drive away.
Наши интересы города вообще не учитываются. Пляж у нас отбирают, другого пляжа нам не дают.
Progress was never going to stop for a beach and village. But the loss is part of a pattern that's convinced locals all they'll get from the world's biggest energy projects is the mess. Gennady Zlivko is the mayor of Korsakov, which is playing reluctant host to both the LNG plant and loading terminal. He says the excavated earth is being dumped straight in the bay.
Мы находимся на берегу залива, который имеет очень богатую ценность по производству рыбы. лосось. И тем не менее все наши требования увозить дальше этот грунт не нашли поддержку Сахалинской энергии.
What angers him more is that the town won't even be getting any gas.
Как можно было не предусмотреть в составе проекта вопрос газификации газа? Представляете, уникум. Завод современнейший в мире, самый большой, и рядом городок, 40 тысяч населения, который котельной работает на угле. Они не предусмотрели газификации города.
In fact, very soon the island's 600,000 residents won't even be getting revenue from the projects. Originally, the island was guaranteed 40% of the royalties. Now, Moscow has decided to take it all. There's no sign the central government will use any of the billions it gets to improve the communities housing the projects.
Крыши текут, дома ремонтировать надо, тепла нет. У нас в городе 25 лет я живу, вода подается по сеансам утром 3 часа и вечером 3 часа. Это уникальное, да? Где такое еще есть в цивилизованном мире?
It's not for us to comment on how the Russian government decide how to distribute the income. We obviously do what we can to help locally. My company alone has invested over $300 million in infrastructure upgrades, roads, airports, hospital facilities and so on. So there is a direct benefit from our expenditure.
Environmentalists have brought a litany of complaints about the project, questioning what would happen if there were an oil spill underwater while the sea was frozen or underground along the 800-kilometre pipeline route. All of it in a region prone to earthquakes. Ian Craig insists it's all been taken into account.
The earthquakes are an issue in this region. We build it into our design, just as they have to build it into the design of any facilities in Japan.
But environmentalists aren't happy, claiming the pipelines have already damaged streams and rivers vital for salmon spawning.
Salmon is one of the main treasures of Sakhalin, so all the pipelines are crossing the rivers. And sometimes they are just destroying, the constructors, they are destroying the riverbeds, they are changing them, or they are destroying the rivers. And if the salmon can go up there, so it will be lost.
There will always be an impact, as I mentioned before. The impact is greatest during the construction phase. The disruption is greatest during the construction phase. Once complete, once the pipelines are buried, etc., the impact will be minimal. So I think at the end of the day, the islanders will be quite pleased that they're getting the benefits, the long-term economic benefits, and the short-term disruption will be past.
There's no doubt thousands of islanders have benefited already from the oil and gas. The once backward capital has become a boom town of new homes, businesses, restaurants and clubs. But many locals who've missed out on the benefits would happily see the oil companies pack up and leave.
Если бы не были нефть и газ, как были бы путешествия?
За счет рыбы? У нас Сахалин существовал всегда за счет рыбы. Может быть, мы не развиты еще в промышленном отношении, но тем не менее, если рыба и лес, Сахалин будет жить и будет торговать, и, может быть, мы не настолько зависим вообще от России, сколько Россия зависит от нас.
As the problems of the Middle East worsen, corporations will increasingly rely on finding new frontiers like Sakhalin. It remains to be seen if the boom will save the local people from their misery, or if they'll curse that they were ever blessed with gas and oil.